in today's episode.
So there's always that balance, isn't there, between brands wanting to protect consumers and brands wanting to monetize the channels and reach their audience. And certainly in the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen that we've actually been able to stop. I think it's just the tenacity and the energy that you need just to keep fighting that fight. And it is a fight, isn't it? TeleSign's on a mission. In some ways, one of the reasons that I went there, what they started to ask us is they say that even though we're using one-time password, we still get bad actors. I think there's probably about 3 reasons, right? If you don't have a flexible approach, and if you're trying to create customer journeys, payment mechanisms, it's really thinking about this from a perspective of people who are not so digitally. I think the questions that I typically ask in my prime role as a leader is I chair one charity called Binti International. I always think, well, how can I help other people? There's not many jobs where you can see that what you do has a direct impact on people's well-being.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for a new episode of the podcast A Journey into Fraud Prevention. I'm your host Ivan Prokofiev. New episode and new exciting guest. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate the episode on any platform such as Apple, Spotify or YouTube. And share the podcast in your network. It means a lot to me and allow me to invite more and more new guests. And most important, enjoy. Let's begin. Поехали. Hey Surash, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Ivan?
I'm very well as well. Thank you. It is a pleasure to have you on my podcast today, and that you find it in time before Christmas. I believe it's the busiest time in the year.
It is very busy. It is very happy to be here.
Amazing. And I would ask you to start from simple introduce yourself for people who don't know you.
Sure thing. My name is Surash Patel. I'm currently the VP of EMEA here at TeleSign. I have been, in technology for, more years than I care to mention, let's put it that way. And specifically in and around fraud, probably for the last 6 years or so, I guess.
Amazing. 6 years, it's already a lot of the time. And for 6 years, it's amazing to start from first questions. Fraud prevention. What is actually fraud prevention for you?
Yeah, great question. Fraud prevention means so many different things to different people. For me, personally, I see all the statistics, the numbers, billions are lost when it comes to fraud, but those billions are lost by everyday people. And that, for me, is where it really hurts. Yes, companies do lose business, but people are losing what I term real money. So for me, fraud prevention is something that ultimately is helping the people, the everyday people, not lose their money and give them good experiences.
Amazing answer. And from the perspective of these kind of people, and I don't want to lose any money. For sure, it's everyone focused right now. And if people who is not in fraud prevention area gonna ask you, could we survive without fraud prevention? What's gonna be your reply?
Oh my goodness, no, I don't think so. I think the connected world that we live in now, and we all know that fraudsters, bad actors, these people are the very first people to embrace new technology. And if there wasn't such a thing as fraud prevention, I think it'd be very difficult for us to knowingly transact electronically. I think it'd be virtually impossible.
Okay, we're gonna move to the way to pay with the stones and gold, I assume. It's gonna be something the same, yeah. And 6 years in fraud industry.
Mm-hmm.
How's the industry changed so far, and where it's going?
Yes. Interesting. So I started in fraud prevention. Really, it came in through the telecommunications. So my first insight was actually analyzing using natural language processing, machine learning models, SMS messages, and being able to determine which are fraudulent SMS messages from bad actors, and then reduce consumer harm that way. Analyzing over 1 billion messages a day at one point, which is quite staggering. And then more recently moved into TeleSign. But, when I think about what's changing, I think COVID changed everything, didn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a cliche now, but it did. Everyone's gone online, and because everyone's gone online, it means that people are putting their transactional information online, and therefore there's much more vulnerabilities. And I think from that perspective, as we've gone online for our transactions, we've gone online for our social network, we've gone online for our work, suddenly all this information is out there. And that information can be picked up by fraudsters. So I think we're seeing a lot of information, appearing in the dark web, fraudulent information, synthetic identities. I think someone mentioned at one of the events I was at that the internet that we see is perhaps only 1/10 of the internet when you include the dark web. And when you hear stuff like that, that's quite frightening.
You mentioned SMS. I'm quite curious because, I'm not using SMS for any services rather than just like confirm something that's happened in any of my accounts. And is it really become a challenge nowadays to like find the way how define the right people, like not the right, how to define legitimate customers? Because not everyone using SMS nowadays, because using applications. I know WhatsApp, Telegram, etc., etc.
It's the other way. If you think about it, in that instance, it was the other way. So it's people pretending to be the brands that you know and trust. So people pretending to be those brands will send messages unsolicited to unsuspecting consumers, and consumers will see things like links, thinking it's from their delivery company, or they'll see messages pretend to be from the bank or the police, again with links. So it's actually tackling that kind of fraud, where vulnerable people or people that, like you suggest, aren't in the industry will unwittingly click on some of these things and get themselves into all kinds of trouble.
It's quite interesting for me that all these companies who providing services for messaging, like WhatsApp, Telegram, I don't know, Facebook, they have something. They don't have simple feature that they can easily to sell, to say, please not show me links in my messages. Only to the list of people I would love to have to get these messages.
It's an interesting point. I think, as with any channel, people are always, brands especially, and companies are always thinking about how these things are used as marketing channels. And then obviously things like information alerts and things like that. So there's always that balance, isn't there, between brands wanting to protect consumers and brands wanting to monetize the channels and reach their audience.
Yeah,
it's an interesting point.
Yeah, maybe one day it will be super expensive subscription. No one will be using this one. And so you mentioned you moved from telecommunication to the fraud prevention path. What actually motivated you to join the fraud fighters path? And what's motivation to keep you here and not driving you back?
I think the motivation was when you actually see the effect of the work that you do. So in the roles that I've had, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen that we've actually been able to stop both consumer harm and also prevent fraud for the businesses that we work with. And when you think about that kind of fraud and you think, well, that's actually stopping money going to bad actors, and that money could be used for all kinds of horrible things that we don't even want to think about. So when you think that your professional job can help you make an impact in that sense, then that's quite motivating, I think.
Right. So actually, in a way that you, let's put it that way. So you work actually means something for the people. It's actually like preventing point. That's that you save people from, let's say, trouble. That's actually the main core motivation for you.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Pretty strong one.
It keeps you motivated, like you say. Keep me here for a while, I think.
And what's the hardest things to work in fraud prevention?
Oh my goodness. I think it's the pace of change, isn't it? I think we all see that. The pace of change is just relentless. When we see fraud, we see it from many countries in the world. So fraud will happen in every single time zone. As soon as you start doing something, fraudsters will see what you're doing, and they'll try to mitigate that in some way, find another way through. And so it's this constant challenge of thinking about all of the the attack variables and really working with brands to say, okay, you've changed the customer journey in this way. We know that that's going to stop some amount of fraud, but then they'll move on to that next weakest link, that next weakest point. So I think it's just the tenacity and the energy that you need just to keep fighting that fight. And it is a fight, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And yeah, keep energy, like to stop everything. That's the hardest part. And everyone have, I believe, downsides in a way how they, something's supposed to be work well, and you get excitement to say, oh, we stop everything. We are so happy. One day it stopped working, and you just like start to demotivate yourself. Oh my God, I'm doing something wrong or something changed. I don't know what's changed.
That's right.
How to verify it.
Yes.
TeleSign. I know about this company for a long time, and I still remember, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, it was a message
Yes.
in LinkedIn about this company is calling TeleSign. I know it's maybe company longer than that one, but can you share a bit, like, what is TeleSign? What is the company doing? What's the focus of the company?
Yeah. Happy to do that. So TeleSign's on a mission. In some ways, one of the reasons that I went there, and the mission is to make the digital world a safer place. As we think about working online, and from your earlier question, it's all about trust. And this idea that we have to trust the brands that we work with, and brands have to trust the consumers they work with. So we try to make that online world a happier and healthier digital experience. And we've done that by creating this continuous trust authority. So a whole bunch of initiatives to create that safer world. So things like the TeleSign Trust Index will do a survey of consumers and find out what they think about trust and how they work with brands, how they want to work with brands. We create a badge where we might certify customer journeys and look at whether that brand is doing everything that it can be doing. We created a group of, people like chief trust officers who can come together and talk about some of these things. But ultimately, it's using data, for instance, from telephone numbers, IP address, emails, to create a sense of risk signals that brands can use to help identify bad actors.
Because right now, the fraud prevention market, it's a kind of red ocean. It's a lot of companies. And
Yes.
I know you one of the companies that's longest on the market. I know like about 5 companies who are about like more than 10 years in the market. And what keeps TeleSign like actual, even up to date?
Yes. Great question. So from our perspective, and TeleSign's been around for almost 20 years, it's all about the phone number. So if you imagine when TeleSign started, it was all about SMS messages, one-time passwords. And as TeleSign was founded in Los Angeles, worked with lots of the big global internet properties that are household names today. And as those organizations grew from 2000 onwards into massive global concerns, they were onboarding using SMS messaging and one-time password. So TeleSign's grown as a result of that. And what they started to ask us is they say that even though we're using one-time password, we still get bad actors. What other attributes can you see from these messages in terms of how many messages are sent, how they're received, what volume are received in what period? What insights can we get from that? And we have about 2,000 attributes that can give us more information that will help us create a risk assessment for that phone number. And that is a dynamic thing. So, we end up having a view of, we send messages to over 5 billion numbers a month. So that means that we have this view of how these phone numbers are behaving in the online world. And we can take attributes from that behavior and give those insights to brands to help them look for what signals do we have that correlate with bad actors. And then we create machine learning models, for different use cases, for different brands, for different countries, to help identify bad actors.
So to just like summarize, during the growth of the industry of the SMS and telecommunication, you're not just talking on the way how this company first introduced in the market. You continue to find the way what the requirements in the market happens, and additionally, you also look on the way how to optimize and innovate it. Machine learning is a great approach.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
If people ask me, or ask you, it's better ask you,
Yeah.
why we need to work with TeleSign.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's it
I
going to
think
be your
this.
reply? Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's probably about three reasons, right? One is, um, if you're working as a brand on a global basis, the one thing you want to do is create a good, safe reputation for yourself as a brand, that you don't let bad actors onto your social platform, or, and TeleSign can help you on that. We've worked globally with, 8 out of 10 of the top internet properties that you can think of, and we help protect them and their customers. So that experience and that global reach, I think, is number one. The second thing I would say is just that dynamic information that I'm talking about, because as we know, some risk signals that you can have, you have to wait till the end of the week or the end of the month before a consumer has paid their bill or not paid their bill or whatever it might be. The TeleSign risk signals are right up to the minute. So for instance, if there's fraud happening because someone's picked up a fraudulent number in one country and they try to attack all of our customers, we'll see that increased level of traffic for that number, and then we'll be able to change the risk signal associated with that phone number. So that dynamic aspect, I think, is super, super important to keep you as a brand protected. And the third thing is, that ongoing work, that you mentioned there, is we can't stand still. And we work with these brands, and then we create new models for new use cases. So, new model for onboarding, another model that might be for micro lending, another model that might work in one country versus another country. And if you don't have a flexible approach, you won't be able to keep up with some of these really clever fraudsters who are using probably, the latest models and the latest computing power, because they see that the rewards for this kind of fraud now are just increasing and increasing as more of us go online.
So it's returns to the point, the hardest things in the industry to still up to industry level, because the fraudsters, they're just like, they change everything much faster and the way how they
Yeah,
operate. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy fast.
And speaking of with perspective as a consumers to you, have you been a victim of fraud?
Oh my goodness. I've been a victim of fraud. Many years ago, perhaps about 10 or 12 years ago, I inadvertently clicked on a link in an email that I was sent, and that sent me into a ransomware page, locked down my machine completely unless I paid, a certain amount of money to this company. Now, fortunately, I was quite disciplined at doing my backup, so I could just let it go. And the machine was locked down. But ever since then, that's made me super vigilant. I'm like I'm like one of the first actors inside the company when it comes to looking for phishing messages, and we've seen the sophistication of these things now. So I'm super vigilant as a result of that. So I've been fortunate I haven't been attacked ever since then. I've seen some very worrying attacks on things like WhatsApp, where people who's had their account hacked, and they'll be sending you messages saying click on this link, and you end up making your own account vulnerable. Those kinds of things are frightening, because being in the industry and recognizing and knowing these kind of things happen, and obviously educating my family and my children, it's a crazy vulnerable world at the moment, and we all need as consumers to raise our awareness of some of these things.
I hope I'm not gonna jinx why these questions have you victim from fraud. It's most important. Yeah. Like in the front industry from career perspective. So you right now is quite high position of VP in a huge brand. What skills are necessary to achieve this kind of position? Maybe you can share any recommendations. I don't know, maybe a silver bullet book that says off of the problems.
Yeah, silver bullet, if only that were true. I think we've said before, there's some core skills if you were getting into this industry. There's some core skills around technology, processes, and rules that you'd need to know. But above the standard things you would expect, I think for me, it's demonstrating curiosity, because as you said, we all think that we got certain results, and we look at the results and think, that's great. But if you're able to demonstrate to the business that you work with, that curiosity, that open mind, that energy to look at things and all the permutations that could be possible, because all of those things are potentially attack vectors. And I think it's that demonstrating that on a continual basis. I think that, going to, I met you at a conference, for instance, going to networks, meeting people from adjacent industries, seeing what challenges they face. And sometimes I'm very fortunate in this role. I get to work with social media on this side that might have no subscriptions, right the way through to financial services who do full know your customer anti-money laundering. So I see that whole spectrum of activity across all industries. And I know there's lots of stuff that we can learn from adjacent industries. So that curiosity, that mindset, that energy, I think that's the thing that will keep you in the industry and will get you noticed. Because if you show the ability that you're constantly looking for new angles and being creative, and you had that, we talked about this, quite a bit on this call, that view of the consumer. What's the experience like for the consumer? How do they see things? Because often the reason that consumers do make poor decisions is because they're either uninformed or the options enable them to do that. And if you're trying to create customer journeys, payment mechanisms, it's really thinking about this from the perspective of people who are not so digitally savvy and think really young and think in the older demographic as well, because lots of these people are not able to keep up with the pace of the customer experience. So that for me would be the key thing that I would be looking for as I look for team members. But I would also recommend people to keep an eye on.
And what's the trickiest questions you usually ask on the interview when you interview someone in your team? Like some specific questions like only you ask.
I think the questions that I typically ask is I'll obviously ask people, what are their key strengths, and what do they think they're good at, and what do they, how do they demonstrate these things? But then I'll also ask, well, what areas do they need help with? What are the development areas? Because that shows a level of self-awareness. Because none of us, however senior we get, have a finished article. I'm a big believer in the growth mindset. Always be looking around, always be reading around your industry, always be reading around other industries. Keep that open mind going. And as you do that, you start to look at yourself more analytically, and you start to think, that's interesting. What skills, what gaps am I missing to go from here to learn more about that, or to be more like this? And I think if you're able to do that and then demonstrate that when you're going through a job application process, I think that level of self-awareness shows that, yes, I know I'm good at these things. I would like to learn these things as well. And I can humbly say that I need some assistance. And that's really important, because you want people that are going to be open-minded.
So, generally speaking, you're looking for like honest answer from people who might say, be honest, I have no ideas how one specific things work, and I would looking forward to learn it in the company. Like in that case,
yeah, absolutely. Because that's the important thing. However great the people you get, you always want people that are going to grow with you. If I, as a leader, my prime role as a leader is to make sure that the people that work in the organizations with me, for me, end up better professionals at the, during our working relationships. So I'll always be looking for those aspects in people, because the people that want to learn will be the people that are most enthusiastic and energized.
Great description. If you're tired of fraud prevention, for example, tomorrow you decide I can't take it anymore.
Can't do it.
Yeah, this is a lot of attacks, new way of fraud. AI somewhere here on horizontal happens, like behavioral change. I'm tired. Where are you going? You back to IT in the first place, or you have like some another idea in your mind that I know start to prepare plans for the moon or for the Mars?
Yeah, I think I'm in a pretty fortunate position. I do try to, do work with some charities. So I probably do some more of that while I think about what my next move might be. So I work with a couple of charities. I chair one charity called Binti International, which is all about promoting dignity and menstrual education, because girls, even in the UK or in developing countries, often drop out of education because they're not educated around menstruation, and society around them doesn't believe in the value that they can bring, especially in the developing world. So I do a lot of work creating education programs, providing menstrual products for societies that can't afford them. And that's abroad and in the UK as well, which you wouldn't believe, but it does happen in the UK too. So that's something that's super important to me. And then another charity I work with as a trustee is CILIP, which is the Organisation of Information Professionals, and this is all about making sure that information provided is democratized through things like public libraries, and again, it's that improvement of society and creating social mobilization is important as well, because I've been very fortunate. I've had what I think is a great career. Work has been good to me, and I always think, well, how can I help other people? Other people don't have the opportunities that I have, and when you see that kind of, I guess it's injustice again, like with fraud. What can we do to help?
You person with a big heart, I would say.
I hope so.
No. I mean, not everyone. When you ask people, like, not about, like, I don't know, retirement, but ask them if you're tired of something, where are you going? Most of the people say, I know, I changed industry. But your answer must say that you still focusing to try to achieve what we actually begin to speak about, to try to help people. That's really motivating to hear it.
Yeah, that's very kind. Thank you.
And I probably have last question. It's usually, I know, a simple one or the hardest one. Some people right now who listen to this podcast, they beginning of their career and consider fraud prevention as a career path. Or some people who in career for a long time, for maybe 20 years, and they don't have motivation to stay here. What do you recommend that kind of groups of people to stay of this area, maybe moving somewhere else? Any advices?
I think, I guess there's two answers to this, right? There's not many jobs where you can see that what you do has a direct impact on people's well-being, and this industry, this job in fraud prevention absolutely does that. And if you ever worry about motivation, always think about the people that you're protecting, and those are the vulnerable people in society. So there has to be that level of motivation. You always fall back on that. I know I do. The second piece is again what we said. Fraudsters move really quickly, really, really quickly. And as you follow this career path, you'll see that you'll probably be on a much faster learning curve than you would be in other industries, because fraud will never stop. Fraudsters will never stop as long as there's motivation and there's reward for them. And what I've seen is, even in the 3 years I've been with TeleSign now, just how much we've had to move. We've had to build new machine learning models. We had to create new infrastructure to support volume and growth, to support the changes in those models. And that forces you to play your best game. And I think fraud fighting will force you to play your best game. And it's going to be tough, and it's going to be intensive, and it's going to be relentless. So, to take a break by all means. But if you want a career that's going to be constantly accelerating and innovating, then I think this is a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, you sell it. Actually, I need to start to find a way how to send it over to university, because I know a lot of people who are in university and they still don't know what to do. This is great options to motivate the youngest generation, because
for sure.
It's actually I don't like this parallel, but sometimes you might feel that from technology perspective we're doing the same that's from the real perspective doctors doing for the saving lives. maybe, of course, it's not the equal things, but from the perspective of viewing, it's quite similar.
It is. It is. When you see victims of fraud, and you see the distress that they go through when they feel really silly if they've done something that, when they realize something bad's happened. 2, obviously, there's the financial burden. And 3, when you see things like, and we've got some statistics on it, account takeover attacks, it takes something like, I think, 8 to 12 hours to get things back to normal after an account takeover by calling all of the brands and it's a heck of a lot of effort. And all this you're just supposed to take as a consumer. So, you do think about, there is a lot of real victims out there. And if you speak to friends at parties, pretty much everyone's been attacked with some kind of fraud, and it makes them feel terrible. Really, really does. So from that perspective, I think what we do is a really valuable role.
Great. Once again, it's amazing to hear from that perspective, because a lot of people, I'm even sometimes not realizing that I'm doing something that's valuable for the
you are for sure,
and of consumables. But when you hear it from someone, it's really motivating and keep you up in a moment that's not everything about promotions or money, but sometimes you need to look in.
You're doing good.
Yeah, a bit deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
So for now, I don't have any other questions in my mind, and I really want to say thank you for your time today to join me. It is pleasure, and it was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I would say everyone supposed to be learning a lot as well. And it's really a pleasure to speak with you, because what's really motivating for the past 30 minutes that we speak, it's about your plan to some charities. It's really impressive.
Oh, that's very kind. No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Ivan.
So I'm gonna say my favorite words that I say on each of my episode, which is cut.